So we are on session 3, masterclass 3 of the International Community of Practice and the Skills for Inclusive Digital Participation. Um, Today, the session is on data protection and cybersecurity. So we're going to be looking a little bit about what your personal data is, where it comes from, where it goes, and the implications of this in our world. So we're on the third session. This is a 1.5 hour long session with a 15-minute breakout room in the middle, which we'll be designating you to. We're recording this session and we're going to be looking at some topics of data protection, personal data, and data processing. And so, without further ado, I'll introduce our guest speaker today. His name is George Krivokapic from University of Belgrade. He's an ICT law professor, is an expert in data protection and cybersecurity. And you can see here he's an ethics consultant, business strategy, and regulatory compliance, a data-driven business models expert. So he knows everything there is to know about data protection. So I'm quite excited to hear it myself. I think this should be a very interesting webinar on the topic. So I will allow George to take over the controls. And thank you very much, George. So I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Okay, I think I can start now. I hope that you can all hear me. I'll talk a bit today about personal data protection, but we'll start a bit about the privacy. And our story starts some 135 years ago. We are in the United States, and privacy is only a concept. It's not really a right. We don't know what it really means at that moment because privacy relates to practically confidentiality of communication, that nobody can read our mails which go to the post office. However, at that moment, we have different technological changes. And what we can see in this image is practically that we have cameras, new portable cameras, which are on the market at that moment. And then journalists, penny press journalists, something what we call tabloids today, or paparazzo, go around the city of Boston in Massachusetts, and they practically go and take photos of some homes of famous people. And here we can see two famous Bostonians at the time. One is professor at the Harvard Law School, and the other one is very well-known attorney. They live in their upper class. They live in some nice houses with pools and nice gardens. And the paparazzo journalists come with the cameras, portable cameras, take photos of them in their garden or next to the pool, and then they publish that in a penny press, in tabloids, for everyone to see. And they don't feel well about that because their intimacy and privacy is now put into the public through the new medium, newspaper, thanks to these portable cameras. So what they do, they write the article at Harvard Law Review about the right to privacy. And then they define right to privacy as a right to be let alone. So this is practically the idea that we have some private, intimate space where we can be free from any type of interference. Essentially, it's our written communication, it's our home and our garden, but it's also privacy of our thoughts or our body, our chemical functions and physiological functions in our body, that we have full sovereignty over these intimate and private spheres. So who is the main attacker to our private sphere? That's really the technology. The change in technology enables different actors to enter our private space and also to capture it and maybe transfer somewhere else. So that's how the privacy starts. And during 20th century, privacy becomes fundamental right. And it really guarantees to us that we are free of interference from anyone, but also from the state and state institutions. Today, we also have the concept of data protection, personal data protection. And this concept, as we will explain later, is developed at the late 20th century. Personal data protection is developed because our personal data have to be processed by various actors, regardless of our private or intimate sphere. So if you go to school or university, a school has to process your data, who you are, how old are you, did you attend classes, what grades did you get. These are all the information about you, but they cannot work without processing this information, and it's not really entering your private sphere. Or if you go to doctor has to have the card with your name and your health conditions over time in order to be able to provide you health advice. So personal data are essential for many activities in a society, and data protection doesn't deal without intimate sphere. It deals when somebody is collecting our data, how they have to behave toward this data, how they have to secure the confidentiality of this data, and what are the options to process it. So now we go to the first poll question, and we talk now not about privacy, we talk about data protection law and what it mainly does. And answer A is sets rules for how personal information is collected, used, and kept safe. Answer B, it protects people's private thoughts and feelings. Answer C, it controls what people can say or read online. Or answer D, it deals with music, books, and other creative work rights. There is only one correct answer. Should we conclude? Yes. So 80% of you answered A, and A is really the correct answer. Answer B is related to privacy, and we can see that privacy and data protection are overlapping, but there is a difference. So privacy protects our private thoughts and feelings, while data protection sets rules for how personal information is collected, used, and kept safe. During 20th century, we had different changes how technology is used. And we can say that 20th century is a time of spies. We have various actors collecting information about people, especially in countries under authoritarian regimes. And we call it the time of targeted surveillance. Why targeted surveillance? Because we have a target. We have someone who is followed, and then we have another person who is following that person using technology to understand what does that person do and how it behaves. However, the end of 20th century and 21st century change the methods regarding surveillance. So now we have various technological platforms we are all using, and these platforms are the one following our behavior and our communications. So what is the change which happened is that we went from targeted surveillance, that some persons are targeted and they are followed, to the age of mass surveillance, age when everybody are followed all the time thanks to the technology. And when we say followed thanks to the technology, we talk about various internet services and apps. And these services and apps are something that we all use. If you take your phone in a hand and open it, you will see probably around 50 to 80 different mobile apps on your phone. And there is a question, how many of these apps did you pay for with money? So we go to the next poll question, which says, many online platforms and mobile apps seems free to use. What do people usually give in return? A, their attention. B, their personal data. C, nothing at all. D, only money. So pay attention. Maybe there could be one or more correct answers. So 20 people already provided answers, and 65% voted for B, their personal data, while 40% voted for A, attention. And both A and B are correct answers. So when we think about how we pay these platforms and mobile apps, it's usually either our attention and time we spend in their ecosystem or our personal data. Mainly, in fact, personal data. So that's why we have two new concepts. We have concept of attention economy and data economy or surveillance economy, reflecting that some services today are not paid with the money, but with either attention or data. And in next slides, I will explain why is that. So in general, you are better than average. Usually 84% of users think that internet services and mobile apps are completely free. And there is a logical problem with that, because we have to ask ourselves, then who pays all these apps? They are not really powered with only free hugs, because if we think these magnificent and extremely useful online apps help us in many things during the day. We all use, for example, different types of online maps like Google Maps, or we use various online services for communication, depending on a market. Is it Viber, Telegram, Signal, WhatsApp, or some other services? And all of them, we all use different mail providers like Gmail, or we use social networks. So we use various apps, and we are not really able to pay them with the money. So there is no option to pay them with the money. So we all practically accept terms and conditions, and we agree that we pay these apps with our data. That explains that data are extremely valuable resource in the new economy, because all these companies behind these apps and services are the most valuable companies in the world. They employ the people with the biggest salaries, and it's not logical that we have the services for free and they have the great salaries and nobody pays nothing. So there is some extreme value in data. These data harvested by mobile apps and other internet services are then distributed in different personal profiles And when these platforms take a view of us, they see what we are and in what percent. Are we mainly a parent, or we are mainly consumer? Are we interested in investing, or we are maybe a patient looking for some cure, medical cure, or something else? And then they use these in attention economy to provide us with something what we need at the moment. And they really keep our digital identities and profiles as very valuable asset they can use for money generation. In order to prove this, I will use just one example which happened 11 years ago. It's a story of WhatsApp, the app used only for communication, sending text and images and videos and so on. This app was very popular, and first Google decided to buy it and offer $10 billion for WhatsApp. However, WhatsApp declined that offer because he was negotiated with Facebook, who paid practically $19 billion in 2014. And now we ask ourselves, at that moment, WhatsApp had 450 million users across the globe. And these users used WhatsApp application without paying any fee for the use of application, because at that time we still use mobile phones and a regular messaging system and calls over GSM network, and we paid money to telecom operators. So people use it, they made their cost of communication lower, but didn't pay anything. So the app didn't have any income at all. And when we divide 19 billion, with 450 million users, we can see practically that Facebook paid $40 per one user. So the value of one user was $40. There is a question why Facebook paid so much. Because he's not getting any financial benefit from the users. The explanation is simple, in fact. There are two reasons. First one, at that moment, Facebook was still web service. So only small number of people use mobile app to access Facebook. Everybody used browser, internet browser, like Internet Explorer or Mozilla. And the difference between mobile phone and browser is that mobile phone will collect much, much more data about yourself. They will collect data where you are. They will have access to your phone book and your friends, access to data about your daily behavior and so on. And they wanted all this data. So WhatsApp had access to mobile phone and this data, and that's why it was important. The other reason was demographics, because the users of WhatsApp were young population, teenagers in a high percent, and they wanted data of that population. So practically they paid 19 billion only to the access to data, personal data of the users of the WhatsApp. WhatsApp is still today completely free to use. So we go to the next poll and we ask the question, which of the following is considered the most strategic asset in driving value creation in today's digital economy? A, effective management practices. B, robust technological infrastructure. C, data as a core business resource. Or D, employee amenities such as a company cafe. Here, I think there is only one correct answer. So we have 24 people, 25 people answered, 27, 70% answered C. The most strategic asset today in a digital economy is data. And that's correct answer. However, we must confess that robust technological infrastructure and effective management practices are also important, but not so important in digital economy. Who has the data? He has the competitive advantage on the market. So we talked a lot about the data and we understood how current infrastructures, internet services and mobile apps are collecting a lot of data about ourselves. So we'll discuss a bit what are the worst case scenarios which can come out of this extensive use of personal data. At the beginning, we all know that practically digital economy is fueled with targeted advertising. Whatever we talk with our friends in chat applications, whatever we see in our browser, whatever we follow on social media, that's something what will come back to us via different types of advertisements, offering us different products, different services all the time. So maybe we are concerned that internet sometimes knows a lot about us. For example, there are many cases that which are proven that online platforms can conclude that somebody is pregnant even if that person doesn't know is pregnant, because it has the behavior which is similar to the pregnant persons. So there's some people in the world who got different commercials about pregnancy care even before they went to the doctor and find out that they're really pregnant. So that's maybe a problem, maybe not for somebody else. I recommend the Social Dilemma movie to better understand this problem. And then we go to the other problem. The second problem are secret services. Because if you have all this data stored at one place, it's possible that some secret services will try to get them all and use it against the citizens. And that's something what is well explained in a movie about Edward Snowden, who explained the PRISM program by United States government in 2013 and explained how National Security Agency really had access to all the data collected by different online platforms. So maybe somebody can say, oh, I have nothing to hide. So you can access my data, but still it could be disturbing that there is someone somewhere collecting all the information about tax and maybe able to use it at some point. The problem number 3 are data breaches. Regardless of the fact that we believe various platforms, how they process and manage our personal data, there is always a problem of data breach, that our personal data are accidentally or due to the act of malicious actor available online for everyone else. And the problem is that if some data is breached, it will always be available online. And here we can just see some of the major breaches in the history. Some of them, like Yahoo data, about 3 billion users, different hotels, Marriott International, 500 million consumers data about who went to which hotel when and for how long, or some other applications. And then we can really be scared that maybe Facebook or Google data breach out one day and that everybody else can know what we browsed or with whom we communicate or which profiles we visited on everyday basis. For someone, that's a problem. For someone, not. But who is interested can read the comic called Private Eye explaining this problem. And this comic is available for free on the website. You can find it. The problem number 4 is problem we faced with the Cambridge Analytica, but we are facing even today, is how the data collected online can be used and abused in democratic processes, and how they can influence elections or other democratic institutions. One good movie about that problem is movie Brexit, and you can find out more what were the problems regarding voting for Brexit, which were induced by this company, Cambridge Analytica, and data from Facebook. But we're also today seeing various problems across the globe, an impact of social media and personal data on elections. A couple of weeks ago, the elections, presidential elections in Romania were annulled due to the incidents with the TikTok, and practically data are really influencing all around democratic processes. And finally, we can talk about future without the privacy. It's very well explained in a Steven Spielberg movie with the Tom Cruise Minority Report. It's a movie where we have predictive policing, and really Tom Cruise is a policeman who is arresting the people who did not commit crime, but there is a prediction that they will commit the crime in next couple of hours, for example. So people are really got by police and arrested before committing the crime. And that's really predictive policing. So we are maybe at the stage that some decisions will be made against us, even if we didn't breach any rule, but there is an algorithm and artificial intelligence saying he will breach the rule, stop him now, arrest him now before there is a damage. Maybe it sounds good, but it could be a bit disturbing. So these are the risks. And these risks are covered in various international instruments, human rights instruments. So when we talk about the right to privacy, right to our intimate and private sphere, it's really embedded into Universal Declaration of Human Rights and European Convention of Human Rights. But the first international document or a convention related to data protection happened in 1981 by Council of Europe, and it's a convention on automatic processing of personal data. This convention had a various impact across the globe, and the most novel instrument really based on this convention is European General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, as we call it. It came into the force in 2018, and it really became a golden standard on a global level on personal data protection. If you take a look into your national laws on data protection in Brazil, Indonesia, Nigeria, or Kenya, all these laws are modeled after the GDPR. So all these laws have the 6 principles which are applicable to personal data processing, and we'll explain these principles a bit later. They are implemented with some differences, but they're all very similar. They have the same regulatory approach. So GDPR created some type of revolution in a way, but it's also evolution, but because it created some really important changes. And I will talk a bit about the sanctions, which are really the revolutionary change. If you breach data protection rules or you do not comply, there are different sanctions. First, there are penalties. You will have to pay a penalty to the state, to the budget. But also there are damages. If you breach somebody's rights and you create some damage to his rights and material or non-material goods, you will be obliged to pay damage to that person whose rights have been breached. There is also criminal liability. So in many countries, you could go to the prison even, and there are different non-monetary sanctions. But these monetary sanctions are really high. So based on GDPR, the maximum penalty is up to 20 million euros or 4% of annual global turnover of the group of corporations. So it's either one or two, but whichever is higher. So there are even penalties up to 1 billion euros. So you can see that until December 2023, European Union collected 4.5 billion euros. Or you can see here how much over the years. And what is important to understand that this European system is applicable across the globe. It has extraterritorial application. So it's applicable even in Latin America or Africa if you process European citizens' data. So if you work anything on European market, and then you have some European citizens' data in your possession, and you process it for some specific purpose, you are obliged to comply not with your national law only, but also with European GDPR. And you can be fined by Europe if you don't comply. There is also a high reputation risks related to non-complying with data protection rules. And this is just one example how Facebook stock crashed at some point when Cambridge Analytica scandal came out, and owner of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, had to testify in front of US Congress and also in front of UK Parliament. So he lost the value. So we stop here, and I turn to Samuel because it's time for breakout rooms.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, George. Really interesting first half of the webinar for sure. So we're going to have a little chance of a breakout room right now, which is why I was asking you to put your national initials in your names. Regardless if you've done that or not, you'll soon find yourself invited to join a room where you will be discussing these topics. So basically talking about some of the themes we've been looking at so far today. How can we help people in our communities start up businesses that respect and protect personal data? Bearing in mind, we've just learned how important data is for digital businesses. Why is it important to know how to handle people's personal data safely? Again, topics we've just been looking at, and what problems or dangers can happen if personal data is misused or not protected. So take a minute to look at these points of order here, these questions, and then you'll soon find yourself being invited to a group, and you can click accept and you'll be sent there. If you have any questions and you remain on the chat, feel free to speak out or just put them in the chat, and we can try and resolve those questions for you. I'll broadcast these questions to you as well in your breakout room so that you have access to them if you've forgotten them. But this is an opportunity for you to try and exchange ideas with people around the world or in your own countries, and see how this information we're learning today could be relevant to your own personal experiences and your community's experiences, and how you could try and incorporate this into your roles as CLTs. So feel free to message me if you've got any questions. Welcome back. Before we get into people sharing some of the some aspects of the conversations they had, there's a couple of questions we've got in the chat. Some people have put in. First question is from Wheeler from Indonesia, and the question is: from some information about personal data leaks, I started to hesitate to give real data about myself to explain who I am on social media. Is what I'm doing a mistake? What do you think, George?
At the moment, it's hard to assess, but do not provide too much data to social media. Try to provide data which are, in general, something you would publish online. So something what you do not consider as your private and intimate sphere. So just the things you really want to be out there. Everything what you believe should not be out there, should not be published in any form on social media. However, social media use these algorithms, as I explained, to mine knowledge about you, and practically they can make different classification of you. Are you interested in one or another political party? That's something what social media knows, because they have your profile and they understand your values and what you believe in based on your behavior. So it's really hard to hide from social media algorithms.
And what about messages you send on social media? For example, Facebook Messenger. That data is mined as well?
Yeah, usually it is. They will not use it to send to somebody else, but they will use these messages. If you shared a link about some product to your friend, they will get the info that you are interested in that product, and that can create advertisement targeting you with products related to the product you share.
So this relates to the second question, which is from Lawal asking, is the WhatsApp conversation actually encrypted end to end? And if so, what does that mean?
There are some apps which have end-to-end encryption, like Signal, and also some other apps can also have similar thing, and that would really disable the platform to use this data, and that creates another types of problems, because also governments are forcing these platforms to provide data in some situations due to the fight against terrorism or in similar situations. So there is always some tension between these kind of apps and governments also. So it's really, that's a second level of the story we talked today about, but it really, for activism and similar situations, it's really important to understand what technology you use and how that technology, for example, communicates data with your government.
Okay, thank you, George. So, unless anybody's got any other questions, if there's somebody that would like to share what their group discussion centered around, they had any interesting insights or anything that they thought was valuable, then feel free to raise your hand now or just speak out and we can hear what you have to say if there's anybody from any of the groups.
So, can I continue? Yes.
Let's just give him 1 second to see if anybody
Okay.
wants to say anything, and if not, then you can continue. Teresa's sharing her thoughts. To check user reviews on any online business platform, we want to use to validate the platform's credibility. Definitely, of course. So making sure you've got some background information on the businesses that you'd be using is definitely wise due diligence to perform before you do enter any agreement, for sure. Anybody else have any views they'd like to share? If not, then George, feel free to carry on. We can finish on time.
Okay, we go to the second part of my presentation, where we'll talk more about data, personal data, data processing, and we'll introduce the data protection principles, which are applicable in all the countries across the globe, except in US on a small percent. It's going to be a bit more legal talk, and we'll talk a bit more about the definitions and the concepts, but I'll try to make it also interesting. So first thing is to understand what is a personal data. And definition, which is similar in all jurisdictions, is that personal data is any information related to identified or identifiable natural person, which we call data subject in data protection wording, or an identifiable natural person who can be identified directly or indirectly, in particular by reference to some identifier. So any information which relates to person which is identified or identifiable. So those are the elements. So how do we identify any person? Identifier is usually the name, like my name, George Pivokapic. But if many people have the same name, then you need some other element to identify it, like identification number, location data, like usually the name and the date of birth are enough to identify someone. But then if you have identification number, it's completely sufficient to identify someone. Or some online identifier, like the specific number of your cell phone, that's called email number. Each cell phone has a particular number and it's unique. Or, for example, IP address. When you connect to internet, you receive IP address, it's unique. You are the only one who has it at the moment. So there are various ways how you could be identified. But what's important to understand, not only identifier is personal data, it's also any information which relates to identifier. So for example, George Krivokapic or me has brown hair and beard. So beard related to George Krivokapic is also personal data, and it's also under protection. So not only identifiers, but all the other information which are in some connection with identifier, with the identity. So in practice, person data, names, addresses, locations, online identifiers, cultural profiles, financial data, or health information. And examples in business are usually human resource records, so all the information about all the employees in a company. Then security and access system data. You have, for example, in your company cards, and anybody who enters into the company has to put the card in order to enter. There is a data stored that that particular card entered the premises at particular time. That's all personal data. Then IT systems data, for example, George accessed this document on the server and downloaded. That's all personal data. Then company phones data, so communication data, that I use a company phone and I called or send messages or a company phone to another person. That's also personal data. Then data from CCTV or video surveillance, because it has the face, and face is sufficient identifier for any one of us. There are no two same faces in the world. Then contract databases, all the contracts with physical persons, individuals, or for example, newsletter lists. You have a lot of emails, so you send email newsletter. All these emails are in fact personal data, or all online registration data. You create a website, somebody register on your website, all the data you receive through registration process or the use of website, it's also personal data. It's important that data protection is only applicable to natural persons. Data protection regulation only applies to natural persons, does not apply to legal persons, so does not protect the data about the companies or any other type of legal persons, like foundations or different organizations who are not individuals. Also, usually, data protection regulation does not protect data regarding individuals who are not alive anymore. So it's right, and it's a framework which applies only to live individuals. And we also, beside regular personal data, we also have sensitive data. Sensitive data relates to the data which require higher level of protection. And usually those are the data which could be related and basis of discrimination, like, for example, political views, ethnicity, sexual orientation or similar. But also sensitive data are medical data and genetic data, but also all types of biometric data. So now we can see in this table 3 different types of data. We have non-personal data, we have personal data, and we have sensitive personal data. Non-personal data is, for example, only address, Porter Street 47, but that address does not relate to any identifier or any individual, and it's non-personal data. Or, for example, generic email address, like info@helpit.com. This does not relate to any particular data. But if you have personal email address, that's george@gmail.com. That's my personal address, and that's personal data. Then, for example, a receipt from the store with the date, time, and last 4 digits of credit card number, but no name or email address. That's non-personal data. But if there is a name, George Krivokapic, and my last 4 digits of credit card, that's a personal name data, because name is sufficient to identify me together with these 4 digits. Again, corporate accounts with summary payroll data. For example, we paid to the position of accountant in total $500,000 US dollars over the last 3 years. That's non-personal data, but pay record with the gender and age, even without the name, is sufficient to be personal data, because you can, based on gender and age, identify the person whose pay record it is, usually. And for example, company name and a website is not personal data, but the web cookie, which is put in your browser in order to follow your movement through the web, is personal data. On the other hand, as I explained, sensitive personal data examples are racial or ethnic origin, political opinions, religious beliefs, sexual preferences, or biometric informations. So now we go to the next poll, just to check what you think. Name, what is the personal data? We have 4 answers, potential answers, so name and address, then bank details related to individual, personal email address, or image or video of a face of the individual. So pay attention. Here, it's quite obvious that there is more than one correct answer. Okay, I think majority of you voted. And I can say that all of these potential answers are correct. Name and address are definitely personal data, while I lost the control, sorry. Bank details, if related to individual, are definitely personal data. Email address, if it's personal, it's personal data. If it's not personal, like info@britishcouncil.uk, that's not personal data. And image or video of a face, it's definitely personal data. And then let's talk a bit about data processing. Data processing is something what is the object of regulation. So data protection regulation regulates data processing. So it's practically any act which is related to personal data, like collection, recording, organization, structuring, storage, retrieval, use, even restriction, erasure, or distraction. So as you can see, there are many acts which constitute processing of personal data. So if you touch in any way personal data, you're processing it. If you're just viewing it, is processing, or anything similar like this. And examples of processing include, for example, as we said, staff management and payroll administration. So the administration who pays the payrolls is processing personal data. Access to contracts database containing personal data is processing. Sending promotional emails to individuals is processing. Posting a photo of a person on a website, for example, when Samuel puts my photo on a website or social media, is processing of personal data. Storing IP addresses or MAC addresses, as I explained, the specific addresses of mobile phones, it's processing of personal data. If you put video recording, CCTV, anywhere, and it can record faces, it's personal data processing. And now I'll just outline who are the main actors in this process, because we have different roles, and these roles behave in a different manner. So on one side, we have the controller, and on the other side, we have processor. Controller is actor who can be legal entity, but also physical person, who determines the means of processing and determines the purpose of processing. So controller is the one who gains the benefit of processing, and he's the one determining the purpose and the means. Processor, on the other side, is the actor who processes personal data on behalf of controller. So usually one company, for example, knows that it has to obtain the data and use it for some specific person, send the promotional emails, but then it engage other company to do the processing and send the emails because they do not have infrastructure, knowledge, or something. So this other actor, the processor, is only acting on behalf of controller. So he carries out the processing usually, while the controller is the one responsible. And then the data subject or individual is the one who is really providing data to data controller, and then data controller provides the data to data processor based on a contract between them. So data subject, whose data have been processed, has a connection and sees only data controller and do not care about data processor. So we go to one more poll and to final part of presentation. So is personal data essential for the operation and competitiveness of most contemporary digital businesses? A, yes, personal data is central to most business models and services. B, no businesses can fully function without collecting personal data. C, not sure, don't know. And D, only for governmental organizations. Okay. Now we have the quiz. Okay. It seems that you all got the correct answer. And the correct answer is A. Personal data is central to most business models and services in digital ecosystem. Very good, very good. And in this final stage, I will explain you the 6 principles of data processing. And all, as I explained, both GDPR and all national laws have these 6 same principles. First one is legality, transparency, and fairness principle, which means the data shall be processed lawfully, which means you should have a legal basis to process it. And there are 6 legal bases. One is consent, but we have others also. and we'll not talk in detail here, but you always need to have some legal basis to process it. Then you have to be fair. You cannot collect all the data and not provide anything in return. There have to be some fair relationship. And the third thing is transparency. You need to be transparent. You need to, in advance, explain to data subjects why you're going to use their data. The second principle is the purpose limitation principle. This principle says that data must have a pre-stated explicit purpose of intent prior to collection. So prior you collect the data, you have to explain to the subject, what is the purpose? Why are you collecting this data? And also, then you collect the data and you can process data only for that particular purpose. I cannot collect the emails of my students in order to grade them and then use these emails to send them promotional message about a great excursion to some beach. So I can only provide them grades using this email. And cannot use data outside of this pre-stated explicit purpose. So there is one cute comic here. There is a boss asking, what is this? Getting a lot of data in some document, and the officer says, it's some old data that we have on people from last year's sweepstake. And then boss says, we'll need to erase all of this because it's beyond our original purpose for collecting it. We already fulfilled the purpose, and now we have to delete. The third principle is minimization principle. Only the minimum amount of data should be collected that is required for the processing purpose. So if my, for example, purpose is to contact you in future in order to send you information about new courses on data protection, it's completely sufficient that I collect only your email address. I don't need your name. I don't need your age. I don't need your medical condition for that. All I need is your email address, because I will send you email and invite you to new data protection training. I don't need any more data. So it's always a question based on minimization principle, how much data is enough to fulfill the purpose. Then the principle number 4 is accuracy principle. The controller has to keep data accurate and up to date. If data is found to be inaccurate, it should be rectified without delay or erased, and controller will be liable for that. So if you process someone else's data, you have to have capacity to keep it accurate. Principle number 5, storage limitation principle. Data that permits identification of data subjects or personal data must only be stored for the required amount of time to meet its purpose and no longer. So when you fill the purpose, you delete it. Sometimes you will put in advance, this data will be stored for 5 days or 2 weeks or 3 months. But even if you say that, if you fulfill the data, the purpose of processing before, you're obliged to delete. So the last poll is in front of us. For how long is personal data allowed to be stored under data protection principles like purpose limitation? As long as needed for the specific lawful purpose it was collected for. B, exactly 5 years, regardless of the context. C, indefinitely, if storage is technically possible. And D, up to 100 years for historical records. Seems to me that you got the correct answer quite well. No problems there. It's A. You only keep the personal data as long as needed for the specific lawful purpose it was collected for. When you fulfill the purpose, data should be deleted. For example, if your purpose is to monthly inform your users about the new services, for example, then the purpose is indefinite, and you can process data indefinitely until somebody says, I don't want to receive this information and unsubscribes from your list. So it's possible that the purpose is continuous and then data processing is continuous. And the sixth principle, which is really important, is integrity and confidentiality principle. This principle relates to the information security of data. So who decides to process personal data as a controller or maybe processor has to maintain thorough processing and storage in order to ensure no unlawful data processing, access, or damage occurs. So you need to apply various technical and organizational measures in order to keep data safe and confidential. The last but not least is overreaching principle of accountability. So accountability means that data controller, the one who processes data, is liable to keep it safe, but it has to demonstrate that he applied all these previous 6 principles in total. So controller is responsible and accountable for data processing compliance. We are out of time, but we are also out of slides from my side. So I hope that this was useful for you, and Sam, you can take over.
Thank you very much, Georgia. Yeah, so that's the end of the session today. We've just got one more thing to explain to you, which is that there is a learning opportunity, as there is every month. Here we can see what it will be this month. This will be shared with you into the Microsoft channel. You'll have access to this information at a later date. But this relates to setting up your own data protection settings in your LinkedIn and Zoom accounts that you've been setting up previously on this series of webinars. So basically, it's trying to get to grips with your own personal data protection and cybersecurity. So how can you be aware of the data you're sharing and understand the implications of this? Understanding how important it is for businesses in terms of both making money and ensuring you've protected your own interests as well, and looking at questions around how data can be very useful when it's used correctly. So this will be shared with you, but it's just a bit of a taster. And then to finish, there's just a couple of questions we would like to ask you. And I'll run those questions now. If you'll just bear with me. Laptop's being pretty slow. Yes, I've launched the question now, and it is this. So if you could answer that question, that would be great. And Georgia, someone's got a question for you there that maybe you're better positioned to answer than myself. Where does the deleted data go to? Maybe you can help out Lynette there.
So deleted data should not go anywhere. They should be destroyed. But there are various ways how you can delete data. Today, the most usual practice for deleting data is really destroying the connection between identifier, like my personal name or personal identification number, and the rest of the data, like I said, brown hair and brown beard. So that's called anonymization of the data set. You destroyed all the identifiers, but you can still leave other data which is not personal, so you can process it for other purposes. So, for example, for Sam in this situation, it's useful to keep the data about how successful were your answers to the polls, and to know how well did you answer and how correct. But he doesn't need to have in a data set an identifier and know who answered which answer on particular poll.
Thank you, George, for that. Yeah, any more questions? Please, if you could answer the second long form question, just to give us a bit of qualitative feedback from the session. And if anyone's got any other queries or questions or concerns, existential fears, fear of the direction society is heading, feel free to voice your concerns now. And if not, and if you filled in your response to this question, thank you very much for participating and attending. And that's the end. We're finished. So we'll see you next time for AI and its uses next month. And thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.